One of the most frequent issues that causes companies to reach out to me is the frustration of being burned by candidates during the interview process who talk a good game, who promise the world, but then end up underperforming. Does that sound familiar? Sitting across from a candidate who seems to have, say, for example, a great Rolodex or seems to know all the right things to say, but then 6 months down the road, a year down the road, they break your heart. It's one of the most frustrating things for sales managers to deal with, and there are really two big reasons for this. Number one, not using an effective personality assessment, and number two, not using a behavioral interview. On the side of the personality assessment, yes, many companies will use cheaper tests, or sometimes no test at all. But when we're looking for somebody who's going to be an effective hunter salesperson, we're looking for the person that's going to be able to knock on the door, get that door slammed in their face, then knock on the next door with that much more certainty and conviction. Do you think a standard personality test is going to be able to get at those characteristics? It's not. The test needs to be tailored to salespeople. It needs to be tailored to the psychological demands unique to that position. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. The second step, of course, is the behavioral interview. The test is never the be-all, end-all. It's one step in the process. When the person has done well on the test, they have now earned the opportunity to be grilled by you in the interview. And that's, of course, when you sit down with the person, not asking them about hypotheticals, not asking them about what they would do if, not assessing whether or not they've got the gift of gab, but looking for consistent examples of things that they have done in the past that will allow us to predict how they're going to perform for us going forward, making sure that we're getting consistent stories, consistent things that they've done previously that predict that the person is going to engage in those skills or those characteristics going forward. So for example, when it comes to something like organizational skills, tell me about a time when your organizational skills were particularly important for you. Really making sure that we're getting consistent examples of things the person has done previously that show that they were organized. Or when it comes to, say, persuasiveness, tell me about the most difficult deal you've ever handled. How does that deal stack up against the ones she or he would need to make for you? How did they handle the challenges that were thrown at them, and did they close the deal? Again, using those behavioral interview questions. Those are really the two key steps, the test and the behavioral interview, that you need to engage in effectively. Now, on the side of the test, we've developed an assessment called the drive test. And it's a little bit different than most of the tests out there. We find, unfortunately, again, although there are many, they can be relatively easy to game. So the drive test uses a format to eliminate faking. But then number two, most importantly, the drive test is the only assessment that measures the non-teachable trait that is essential for success as a hunter salesperson: drive.